Welcome to episode 25 of the Irish Mags Show, and for what is our 2023-2024 end of season review, brought to you by the Irish Mags NUFC supporters group. My name is Paul, I'll be your host for today, and joining me are a duo almost as iconic as Bruno Guimaraes and a magic bucket hat. It is Mr. Alan Williamson and Mr. Chris O'Martin. Say hello, lads.
How are we, guys? How are we?
How are you, Jen? How you doing? I'm assuming that I'm the hat, right? Am I the hat?
Obviously.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because seeing as you never are without a hat, I don't know. But Bruno, when Bruno has his hat on down in the corner of the stadium celebrating the goal, it's a bit more iconic than you are, Chris. I'm not going to lie. No offense, like.
No offense taken. No offense taken.
Lads, this is a bit of a away from home show again this week. So if anyone saw it last week, and apologies for my terrible connection last week, hopefully this week we've solved some of those technical issues. Alan decided he wanted to get in a piece of the action. He's also, as you can see, dialing in from a secret remote location somewhere, I believe, in Ireland, as far as we know. But Emma doesn't know where he is, so we won't divulge that information.
Yeah.
But yes, fingers crossed all of our connections do hold up. Last week was a little bit tough, but we hopefully back on track. Unfortunately, though, we have Krisho returning with a bottle of Corona in hand, so he's here to derail everything once more.
I'm back. Thanks, guys.
What have you been up to? What was going on? Like, why did you leave us?
I really missed you guys. Look, I had Miggy Almiron's wife rang me. We had a chat before about when I was slagging him off and stuff, and his wife has been texting me ever since, and I kind of find it a little bit awkward and a bit unusual. She texted me last week. She said, look, I'd love you to come over to a family event in Newcastle. So I went over and I spent some time with his family. We got to know each other, and now I don't have a problem with Miggy Almiron. I think he's an excellent inside left winger and right winger. That's it, really.
So, Krisho, what we've learned is if you have beef with someone, the solution is just buy you a few pints and you'll get over it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
No. He doesn't hold a grudge. That's nice.
No, never. Never.
Right, well, I'm not buying you any pints, so you can continue hating me as you always did. Well, let's move on. Today we're going to do a little end of season review. Among other things, we also want to do a little bit of a carry on from last week's show where we were doing our deal or no deal in terms of keep or sell. And we did say we might have a little chat about what our best 11 looks like in the current state after that deal or no deal situation, and then maybe discuss kind of some potential transfers we'd love to see come in. But before we get to that, lads, considering it is the end of season now, we can officially exhale. What a crazy season it's been. More Newcastle games than we've ever had in a season, and more roller coaster of emotions and more carnage. I just want to do one thing, lads. I was listening to, I don't know if you listened to the Totally Football show. It's a really great podcast, obviously, about football. And one of the things they were talking about was summing up the season in just one word. Now, they were doing that kind of for the entire football season. I want you lads to try and sum up this season for Newcastle in one word, for the Irish Mags or for the Newcastle United community. What one word would you use to summarise this season? And Krisho, I'm going to come to you first because you are a man of few words, as everybody knows. So I think it's the right place to start. And you're very eloquent the way you have the gift of the gab, let's say.
I was going to say mixed sack, but that's not one word, or mixed bag, as it were. So what I'm going to go for is haphazard.
Haphazard. Okay.
Haphazard, yeah. That's what I'm going to go with. And essentially, we all of us, and people listening as well, we all live through the highs and lows of Newcastle, whether we're doing well or not. There's always something we can grump about, but this season has been haphazard. Essentially, it's been all over the place.
That's probably what I would describe you as well. But again, we would save that for another time when it comes to it. Alan, over to you. What one word comes to mind when you think about this season?
Plenty of words come to mind.
You've used a lot of them on this podcast. But
I will go with patchy. I just felt we were a couple of games in a row would be absolutely unbelievable. A fair few games in a row would be absolutely horrid. So patchy's going to be my one.
Okay, haphazard, patchy. Batshit? Is batshit all one word? Could I go with batshit?
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
I'm kind of torn. I'm torn between batshit, which is just literally the first thing that comes to mind, because it's just the chaos factor again. But I can't get away from that word unfortunate. You remember a few weeks back we did a series of unfortunate events. And I just, the more you just look back, it's been so many batshit and unfortunate and haphazard and patchy things that have happened this season feel like they were last season or the season before. It feels like the longest season we've ever had. But that's why we're here. We're going to actually dive into some of those moments. We actually did ask our listeners as well for some inputs on this. And we can reveal, we've been given the privilege, lads, to exclusively reveal the results of the Irish Mags player and young player of the season. Chris Shaw was not told who won because we know he can't keep a secret.
I can't.
And we couldn't trust him wandering around Dublin or Newcastle or Paraguay or wherever the hell he was. So he doesn't know at all. And we'll be revealing that on today's show as well. And then we're going to have a little chat about transfers, as I said, and some news that's been breaking literally on the day of recording, peek behind the curtain, because we feel it's important to talk about it. Right, lads. Before we go into all this end of season crack, I heard there was some even bigger end of season crack had in the Bleecker Street bar in Dublin at the weekend. Now, obviously, me being away, I couldn't make it up. I did see there was Irish Mags travelling from all over the country, which was madness and class all at the same time, especially on a Sunday. A lot of lads missed mass on Sunday from what I heard, as well as missing trains and planes and buses and all kinds of automobiles. And also last week on the show, Chris Show, you might have missed it, but Alan was playing games with the emotions of the Irish Mags, because at the very end of the show, he decided to just tell everyone that there was a big surprise planned for the meetup in the Bleecker.
Heard that.
He wouldn't even tell me, even after I stopped recording, he still wouldn't tell me. So Alan, obviously the cat's out of the bag now. So would you like to talk us through the meetup that happened, the events that took place, and of course, what was this lovely surprise that happened?
So this lovely surprise, as the video pops up on screen, you're going to see one of the Champions League flags, the second Champions League flag, a couple of our generic Newcastle flags. And here we go with the Irish Mags tricolour. Jacob Murphy. Got the Irish Mags flag, Bleecker Street Bar, and there you have our big surprise that is only partially finished, that we have had the black and white stripes done to the Bleecker Street Bar HQ upstairs, which I have to say was absolutely unbelievable. And shout out to Johnny, who did corner me. And
Man, Johnny.
yeah,
Johnny.
unbelievable. It was cracking. I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. And when it's finished, it will look even better. The next one to go is that kind of red wall in the corner that we've been trying to get rid of all along, but that's next. That's next, I promise you.
It does
beautiful.
look class. Yeah,
it's
it looks unreal. I mean, I know, obviously, we know a lot of the Irish Mags, and a lot of our listeners may not have even got to the Bleecker yet. Even myself, I think I've been up twice, maybe 3 times. But just to be able to actually solidify this is a real, Newcastle pub in Dublin. And, when you lads say to me how all these random people arrive in that manage to, find us wherever on the internet that the game can be watched there, not only will they be shocked to walk in and see a load of Newcastle fans and Irish Mags and Newcastle jerseys, they're going to be blown away when they see, the flags and the colour and the wall. It's going to be class.
It's fantastic.
So,
It was
unbelievable.
fair play. Unbelievable stuff. And in terms of meetup, it was a big one. As I said, I know a big bunch of lads were travelling from the west of Ireland contingent, because I know they were having some awful hassle with trains. Apparently, the driver of the train just didn't show up, so there was no train drivers. Now, I'm almost certain that one of the Irish Mags that was travelling probably was meant to be the train driver, and he just forgot.
More than
But they got there in the end. But it looked like a very successful meetup. Looked like one of the biggest crowds we probably had all season.
Yes.
And I also heard there was a quiz. I'm curious to see how that went. There's no point me even saying how did Chris Show get on, Alan, because he probably just didn't do well.
He's still down the quiz, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I was the quiz master because the usual quiz master yourself wasn't there. We had a couple of very nice prizes. Money, jumpers, hats, everything to works. So the winners of the quiz, in first place was David. Knocked it out of the park, 15 out of 20 questions right. Fair play to him. Then we had Graham, who went to actually a tiebreaker for second and third place. And Graham and Luke. And Graham came out on top with his shout for Deportivo La Coruña, from where we'd signed Fabrizio Colacini. But yeah, the quiz itself was absolutely cracking. Absolutely great day all around. I think we well over 50 people showed up. We had food, we had drinks, we had crack. We got a result, which is the most important thing. But just absolutely everything. You can see from the pictures there, they're just cracking. Absolutely love it. And we're only going to get bigger and better every single one next year.
I mean, to be honest with you, Paul, it was nearly a case that we didn't actually have enough space for the amount of people that were there. We had to rejig everything just before the kickoff because we kind of realized, wait a minute, look at the amount of people coming in here. Wait a minute. So it all ended up being kind of like a seating section, like a seating plan, like as if it was like a virtual stand. And I literally couldn't believe it. It was nearly like the Sunderland meetup. And even the one on Wednesday, the Man Red meetup, that was about 40 people, 45 people as well. So it's getting bigger and bigger. It was nice to see families as well, Al, right? It was nice to see people bringing their kids in their Newcastle jerseys and stuff, and little young lads and little girls just having a really nice time watching the match and getting involved and singing the songs. So that was super cool, like super cool.
Yeah, we might chat. We'll chat. I think we should chat about the game actually in a minute as well, because it was a pretty good game. You mentioned Johnny there, and fair play to the work Johnny's done. Obviously, not only like having us there and welcoming us every week or every 2 weeks, and all the staff as well who are amazing. I can testify to that as well. Do we need to ask Johnny? Is there going to be a limit on bodies or weight on that floor upstairs? Is there a max capacity threshold? Are we going to have to talk about extending the Bleecker Street Bar? Never mind extending St James's Park, because that seems to be where things are going now.
Yeah, we're just going to knock in next door. It's grand. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
we'll be fine.
Yeah, be grand.
I'm sure we've got a few builders and crafty labourers out in the Irish Mags community, and a few lads probably hanging around the urban planning department as well. Fine, be grand. I told you before, lads, I often get a little bit of a condition called fear of missing out whenever I see the fun and crack that's had in the Bleecker, and I definitely have it now. I am away on holiday, so I can't really complain, but it looked like an unbelievable afternoon. And obviously, we'll get to it in a little while. We asked some of our Irish Mags crew to nominate some of their favourite moments of the season, and there was quite a few shout-outs for the meetup that happened at the weekend. So, yeah, I'm not jealous at all, lads. And even Lucretia was even there, Alan. I don't know how I feel about this. It's not fair.
We missed you, Paul. I miss you every time you're not there. Yeah,
this is true. Yeah. Just stop texting me, please. I'll be home in a minute. Right, moving swiftly onwards, lads. We spoke about that Newcastle versus Brentford game there briefly for a moment. Let's just touch on some of the highlights, because look, it was our last game of the season. It's still there's still that little asterisk or question mark hanging over us because of a pesky FA Cup final that could change things, even though I don't think any of us really think it will. But Alan, you and I spoke about this last week when we recorded the show.
Yeah,
Newcastle had to go out last weekend, go away from home, back down to London, and get 3 points. It was just bottom line. We talked about, obviously Chelsea were playing elsewhere, Man United playing elsewhere, but we knew we had to go and get 3 points. And lads, get 3 points we did. Now, the first thing that jumped out, a lot of discussion on this. Pope back in the squad, Joe Linton back in the squad. Trippier on the bench was also a fairly big statement, even an admission perhaps that it was a bad decision to play him against Manchester United. I felt like, once again, I looked at the squad and I went, sorted. We're in here. Alan, I said to you, we're going to go down to London, win 3-0 again, like we did to Fulham a few months ago. And that was fine. And then a couple of minutes into the game, Brentford scored. And I had I'm not going to lie, lads, I had a bit of a fucking panic attack. Thankfully, VAR came in and it was a right call. It was offside, even though I wasn't sure as it happened live. And I'm sure you lads up in the Bleecker were pulling their hair out. But it was offside, yeah. Just about. But we'll take
just about.
And now, lads, I hate to dwell on something like this, but we reacted very well. But then I saw one of the biggest sitters of the season missed by Joe Linton. And I keep saying it, but
Joe Linton.
Yeah, it was the Joe Linton of old. It was 40 million from Hoffenheim, 4 years ago, Joe Linton. Yeah. Glorious chance missed. I felt so bad for them because
it was J9, not J7.
That's it. It's the guy who missed the ball and kicked himself in the face. It's that guy.
That's exactly who that is.
I mean, he has scored a few goals like that actually over the last season or two. Where he's just arriving right place at the right time and he smashes it in like emphatic. And I celebrated as he kicked it and he didn't go in. And I was like, no. And I did for a brief moment. I thought, oh my God, it's going to be one of those kind of days. Then Bruno comes along and says, nah. He plays an absolute surgical precision cross over the box, like on a plate for Harvey Barnes of all people. Great to see him cutting inside and getting in that area. Smashes in the header, 1-0. And from then on, lads, felt a lot better about things. I just want to know, lads, what was the reaction to that goal like in the bleaker on Sunday?
Well, I'm just going to jump in here for a minute because as that ball was being crossed, someone behind me in the bleaker was saying, Harvey Barnes doesn't book up his game. He's going to be sold. As the header is going into the back of the net.
That wasn't me, was it?
That was you.
Sounds like
Of course it
Christian
was you.
statement.
Oh, of course it was you.
It was me. I was being a
course it
little. I was
was.
being a little bit
Always.
sensational, just a smidgen, because I knew Al was right there. I was right in his ear. That's all.
But yeah, the ball by Bruno, inch perfect. The run, the header, everything about the goal was absolutely brilliant. As you said, that miss by Joe Linton was absolutely horrific, but it was a bit of a mental start to the game. It was end to end, kind of chaotic, and thankfully we grabbed it by the scruff of the neck with the goal. Thankfully.
Yeah, Paul, you were talking about, like, can the weight be held of all those people? But when Harvey Barnes scored, it was literally like sitting in the stadium. Everybody jumped up in the air and started to roar all at once. 60 people and little kids too. Everybody giving it socks. It was party time. I mean, we all kind of went, we're going to roll this game, because we looked on it. I can be honest with you.
We did.
Even though it was a bit of a roller coaster start, we really looked on it. We were really up for it. Like, beautiful goal.
Yeah, and it was the tenacious, high intensity, ferocious Newcastle side that we've just not seen enough of this season.
Yeah. Joe Linton.
It was Joe Linton, especially the first half. I think he picked up a knock maybe in the second half, but in that first half, lads, I was like, he's done it. He's tackling, like, he was just getting his feet and he was getting his body and he was just making tackles, and they were absolutely freaking out. Like, Brentford just couldn't. They just had no time in the ball, and then I feel like because Joe Linton was doing it, everyone else started doing it as well.
Yeah.
And I'll come to those two goals in a moment. Now, we did have that offside goal then against Isak. I think Isak set up Longstaff. And Longstaff actually, finishing nicely where we failed to do so in the past.
Yeah.
Felt like it deserved a goal. It didn't. But the one thing I wanted to call out there was this, it reminded me of when Isak missed that penalty a few weeks ago. He bounces back and I don't want to say makes up for it, but he doesn't let that kind of thing bother him. He just kind of goes, all right, fair enough, I'll go again. Yeah. And he does it and goes again. And there's two goals, I talked about closing down Chris Shaw. There was I'm trying to remember, which order came in which, but like there was Isak, I can't remember the Brentford defender's name. Isak basically kind of capitalizing on the Brentford defender who kind of hesitated and made a balls of it. Suddenly Isak gets through, plays a lovely ball on his left foot into the path of Jacob Murphy.
Beautiful.
And then Murphy decides to flip it, and this is why I'm curious to hear Chris Shaw's thoughts on this. He talked about how Miggy's in his good books. I'm wondering, is Jacob Murphy still in his good books? Because Murphy then closes down the left back, wins the ball back, threads it through to Bruno, feeds it through, and then Isak scores. But two goals, lads, that came from that press in their half. That is the Newcastle we all know and love.
Absolutely, and like we talked about it a couple of podcasts ago about Murphy follows instructions, and when he has some space and some time to do what he's been instructed and trained to do all week, he will do it very well. He's a good crosser of the ball. He's a good striker of the ball. He seems to know his position very well. Is he top quality? No, but does he? When he does his job, and when he, like I said, as he's been instructed and trained to do, he's bloody excellent. And again, the other day, he was outright excellent with Joe Linton in the first half. Okay, the ball by Isak was absolutely succulent, frankly, but the finish was beautiful, right? It was juicy, juicy and succulent,
succulent. Succulent. This isn't a KFC podcast here.
No, I'm just saying it was finger licking good. Like, you can quote me on that. But no, I'm trying to get a new sponsor for the podcast. Give me a sec. No, but like Jacob Murphy epitomized exactly how up for it the whole team was, and like we just said earlier, by Joe Linton being there, just staring at people, tackling people, they all had a bit more free reign to kind of get what their instructions were right. He just calms the whole team down. Again, Longstaff, even he seemed like he had a direction and was doing things well. He seems to lose his confidence a little bit, float around a lot, but he was very good. But Murphy was superb the other day. Absolutely. Keep him. He's going to get better and better and better the more opportunities he gets, I think.
Yeah, he's kind of an on and off kind of player. When things are going well, like when we, I suppose it's kind of like when we have that rhythm of momentum, you want Jacob Murphy in there because he just clicks into place. Either it's not like he's necessarily causing it all, but he contributes to it brilliantly. But it's just when those things are clicking. But again, going back to Joe Linton, I just felt like Bruno kind of controls the game. Bruno is the technician in the middle of it all, and he's the quarterback. But that ferocity almost radiates from Joe Linton into everyone else. And 2 or 3 of those tackles, and everyone's like, well, if geez, I better do it if he's doing it. And you don't fuck with Joe Linton, as everyone knows.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if from years ago, right? We used to have a five-a-side team in Wicklow, right? Where supposedly I'm originally from, but you never know, right?
No one knows.
But we had a guy that was not a very good footballer, but he was a mountain of a man, yeah. And he played kind of, let's say, defensive midfield. Let's say he was standing in front of the goal, but he wasn't a goalkeeper. But because he was on the pitch with us, we were able to play football because everyone else was frightened of this guy and they couldn't get past him. So they kind of were like, oh, well, we're never going to score anyway. And before you knew it, by halftime, we were like 5-0 up. And your man had really just stared at people and stood in their way. And that's the way I feel about Julian sometimes. He's such a presence in the midfield that I think he overawes some of the opposition midfielders.
He does, and there's no way anyone enjoys playing against him, no matter what the team quality is, Yeah.
No way.
See, Krisha, you mentioned there, like, going 5-0 up at halftime. We went 3-0 up at halftime, Alan.
Mm-hmm.
And as we started that second half and the ball starts moving around, I kind of was like, right, the next goal is crucial here. If we put one away, it's going to be a rout. If they pull one back, maybe we'll be a little bit of bag of nerves. They pulled 2 back.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, Wissa, I think second goal from Wissa was a great finish.
Smashing goal that was.
Wow. Yeah, it was a great finish. But, at 3-2, Alan, and I saw a photo of you in the bleaker wearing a lovely pair of shorts, but at 3-2, were you shitting in those pair of shorts? Because there was nerves there at 3-2, right?
Yeah. The nerves were gone at that stage. I was looking at it going, this is just Newcastle United. I was like, please don't do this to me. I'm like, everything is reliant on us getting a win. I was like, I don't care what's going on anywhere else. Just grind it out somehow. So yeah, the nerves were shot to shit is the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah,
very
what
quiet.
doesn't help is I think just as they scored either the first or second, Man United also scored against Brighton. Now, lads, I'm going to tell you a story here. I actually was watching this in a room where the Man United game was also on another screen because both my parents are Man United fans. This has come out before.
Yeah.
But lads, in the corner of my eye, and mainly because I could see my old man going mental, like Man United were terrible for a solid hour, if not 70 minutes of that game. And then they scored and they won 2-0, like typical, whatever.
Yeah.
But the timing of it was, as we start conceding, they start scoring. And that's where it really didn't help.
Yeah.
But thankfully, we have a gentleman by the name of Bruno. And what does Bruno wear, lads?
Magic fucking hat.
He wears a magic hat.
And magic boots. And magic shorts.
Magic everything.
Yeah.
Magic underpants.
Yeah.
He probably has your gloves as well, Chris Sean. They're now magic as well, but he can keep them.
He can keep them. If he keeps scoring, he can keep them.
The thing I thought about this, lads, earlier, I'm not sure how long before, we had a free kick very much on the edge of their box, and I think Cher took it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a bit too close. And in my head, I was like, I'd love to see Isak take this, because Isak is a lovely striker of the ball.
Yes.
And obviously he didn't take that one. He then takes the second one. And he just kind of whips it enough that the keeper can't really, do anything but parry it.
Yeah.
And Bruno's suddenly there on his own. But, I mean, you talked about the squeaky bum, Alan. When that goal goes in, obviously, Bruno did us all a favour in terms of our nerves and our grey hairs. What a lovely finish. And the biggest takeaway from that is his celebration.
Yes.
Like,
all 53 of them.
Yeah.
He loves this place. He loves
He's in there.
this
Yeah, he lives
place.
for it. Yeah. Like, that's the question I was going to ask you. He's come out of the crowd with somebody's hat. Right? And he's just he's beating the crest. He's wearing his hat. He's loving the love he's being shown. The only way we sell him is if we actually go to him and say, look, we've been given the money. We have to take it. And we tell him that we want to sell him, because unless I think we tell him that we want him to go, I don't see him ever saying, there's a bid in for me, I want to go.
We said it before, Al. I think you said it before, right? It's Real Madrid, right? And I don't need the club will stand in his way if he goes to Real Madrid, Dream Club or something like that, right? But on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called, Twix. Essentially, Bruno's dad was in the away end with the Toon Poles flag and the whole shebang, and somebody just cheekily asked him after the game, is Bruno staying? And his dad said, from what I know, he's staying. So that's came from his dad. He's got he's no way, or he's not looking to move the club. That the club aren't looking to sell him. Eddie Howe even came out and said he's irreplaceable nearly. Same with Isaac. So I reckon we've got him for one more season before Real Madrid come knocking for 100 million quid. I think.
Well, sure, it won't matter because
they
we'll be in the
won't
Champions
even
League. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll be in the Champions League.
And
we'll win it.
there has to be a point where Real Madrid just stop collecting players. This is not how it works.
Well, they're run by the bank. They're run by the Bank of Spain, so they can do what they like.
It's reminiscent of Chelsea and their youth policy. Just take them off. We'll deal with it later.
Yeah. Anyway, the less said about that, the better.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, bottom line, we saw the game out, obviously, which was always nice to see. Lewis Hall had a brilliant game. I think he's just got better and better as the season's progressed, which is lovely to see. A lot of people will say, where was he up until now? Why did it take us so late? But there was a plan there, right? I think whether it was you need to reach a certain level of fitness, a certain level of readiness, there's some kind of a barrier or a test or something that he need to pass for Eddie Howe to go, now you can go in. Now, obviously, injuries might have forced it, whatever, but he's looking really good.
It was the same with Anthony Gordon when he came in out, right? He wasn't up to scratch. He'd never trained like that before. I think it was the same with Lewis Hall in Chelsea. He didn't know what Eddie Howe's training was like, and he was off it, and there was no way we were going to put him in. But now look at him. There's 6 months odds of training with Eddie Howe. He's a star, this guy.
He's going to be some player. He's going to be some player. Yeah. I can't wait to see him fulfill his potential. It's going to be great. Just going to get better and better. Can't wait to see it.
Oh, and Krisho, if we look at 3 to 6 months with Lewis Hall, 3-4 months with Anthony Gordon, imagine how good Tonali's going to be after a year.
Oh.
just think about that. I'll let you dwell on that one because that's a nice thought.
Absolutely.
Superb stuff. Right. So the last thing to touch on really, lads, is we know what that win means. Obviously, unfortunately, Chelsea have finished ahead of us. A hell of a run they've had in the second half of the season, even though today they decided, okay, they're going to change manager again. That's a batshit club, actually, if you want a word of the day for them. But where that leaves us is we finished 7th. I think we all would have snapped your hand off for 7th if we went back to Christmas. We've said that before. I don't think, in one word, lads, is there a hope that Man United beat Man City in this FA Cup final? Because that's the only thing that can stop us getting to Europe.
No, but if it ends in a draw in 90 minutes, I think Man United get Europe.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. The game ends after 90 minutes, and because Man United would be considered the underdogs, I think it's the reason behind it.
No,
they could still get Europe, I think. I was reading that on Twix the other day.
It's the winner. It has to be the winner, surely.
Oh no.
Just saying what I read. I'm not too sure, but that's what I read.
Alan, what have we told you about reading?
Yeah,
I know.
Manchester United wouldn't beat Man City's under 16s. Let's just cut to the chase here. That game is going to be over by half time. Yeah, it'll be 4-0 to Man City, and we can chill because Manchester United it's the worst. The worst they've finished in the Premier League in the whole Premier League history, and it's the worst squad makeup probably since like the 70s when they were down in Division 2. Shocking. And I think Eric Ten Hag is going to get fired. You heard it here first. And Pochettino is going to become the Manchester United manager. Wow. Boom. Mic drop. Boom.
Keep that for your Man United podcast, Chris.
That's starting in half an hour. Come on.
I couldn't resist. I know. Look, I think it's unlikely. There's always a chance. The one thing I did hear, again, I can't remember which podcast it was. Someone said the only way Man United are going to win the FA Cup is if Jack Grealish is in charge of Man City's Premier League title celebrations and they're pissed for the entire week. But fingers crossed that doesn't happen. And if basically where we are, if Man City win the FA Cup, we're in the Conference League, and Alan, we're going to Latvia.
Yes, we are.
Latvia or bust. We are going to Latvia.
Or we're going to Latvia, or we're going to Tala in Dublin, because we might get Shamrock Rovers. So you never know.
I'm
would
kind of
be-
leaning on Latvia.
Oh no, that'd be insane.
Yeah, we'll
That'd be mad.
get a couple of tents, camp up in Tala, straight outside the stadium, right crack.
Tell you what, the Bleaker will be empty that day.
Yeah.
Don't tell Jimmy. Let's crack on, because it is that time where we get to do our little end of season review. And, you know, lads, you'll remember we started this podcast all the way back in November. This is episode 25. As we've talked about, the season feels like it's gone on for a couple of years by now.
Yeah.
So much so that we decided to engage the help of the Irish Mags community for some categories to help us conduct our end of season review. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we've been given the privilege, we've actually bribed Tev and the lads to let us officially announce the winners of the player of the season and the young player of the season, which we'll get to in a moment. Before we do that though, we have a few categories that we want to go through, lads, as voted by our listeners and our Irish Mags community. Some of these categories, a general consensus was reached. Others, a wild variety of submissions, which is really interesting. And we'll touch on some of those. But we'll start off with what, for me, was probably the most common consensus you'll ever find, which was the game of the season. I'm trying to remember if either of you were at that. I know, Alan, you travelled, but I don't think it was that game, right?
I was at Milan away.
Yes.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, and I was at Milan at home.
Yes.
We knew there was a load of lads over there. It was, of course, Newcastle United 4, PSG 1. And not only is that the game of the season, lads, it's probably the game of the decade, if not the game of the last 20 years or the 2000 year.
Yeah.
It's the game of my life that I can remember. Don't get me wrong, like the Barcelona game where Esprit got his hat-trick, I don't really remember. I was 5. That was the game that I will remember in 20, 30, 40 years time. It was just insane.
It's a beautiful thing. I even watched the highlights on YouTube 3 days ago because it popped up and I went, awesome. And I just watched it again and went, whoa. It's truly inspirationally amazing. I honestly thought that we were going to win the Premier League after that game. Honestly, I thought we were the best
do
team.
Everything. Yeah. I'm the
Just
same.
win it all.
I watched those highlights. There's so many games, and I'm at my age, I can't remember everything. Plus, I tend to have a few drinks every now and again. But I nearly remember every moment of that game, and obviously each of the goals. You've got Miggy opening the score, and the euphoria when he scores that first goal, absolute mental. Longstaff scoring his goal, like Dan Byrne with the arms out after the lengthy VAR check, and what we may touch on in a moment. Actually, we'll do it now.
Yeah,
because the next kind of category, which was very much unanimous, almost unanimous, was the goal of the season. In the same game, Fabian Schär, absolute pile driver. And do you know what, Alan, I can see you shaking your head there. He's buzzing. I can see he's got goosebumps. Can you just describe the goal, Alan, through your head?
He intercepts the ball. He intercepts the ball, steps forward, and you're saying just pass the ball into the corner and kill the game out. 3-1 up against PSG. Like, this shouldn't be happening. He steps forward, takes a step around the defender, and unleashes an absolute thunder bastard into the top corner from 25 yards. It is just goal of the season. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
He even
hit it so hard.
he
hit it so hard he fell over.
and he beats one of the tallest and best young goalkeepers in the world today, who actually did see it coming but just couldn't get to it. It was that good. I mean, there is one call, like you said, like you can see there from the things. There is one call. We might as well say that Barnes versus West Ham.
The second goal, that was unbelievable as well. Yeah, a lot of votes for that actually as well. To be fair, there was one in here for Tonali against Villa, and it just makes me kind of go, was that really this season? Really?
Yeah. wait to see next season. That might be Tonali mentioned.
I hope we were talking about Tonali every week next season because we deserve to do that. Unreal stuff. The next category then we asked to bring forward some submissions for was the highlight of the season. This is where we had quite a few, lads. And I'll ask you for yours in a second. The one that for me has kind of shone out through the votes here, and we had like something like 30, 40 votes in here. The common kind of theme I could see jumping out was the Champions League anthem. And I think some people have said, oh, hearing the Champions League anthem on the first game, which was away in Milan. Alan, you were there. I'm
Yes.
sure you both cried and shit your pants or your shorts. Or for those that actually made the home game or just seeing it in St. James's Park, like hearing the Champions League anthem again after what was 22 seasons?
Yeah, 22 seasons.
That has stood out here as our Irish Mags highlight of the season. Would you agree, lads?
Yeah.
A 1,000,000%. I no bounds about admitting in the San Siro, tears running down my face, looking at the Champions League flag in the centre of the pitch while Newcastle are on the pitch. I was like, this is just unreal.
Yeah.
Did you see? You saw Jacob Murphy's expression when the camera panned by, and he went like, well, I think everybody at that moment were like, they were welling up. Do you know what I mean? I turned it up really, really, really loud. I was like, well, just let it go. Let's let it roar.
But it was. I mean, I got to the Milan game, which was the last game. So by then it had already been done 5 times. But even the same thing, like I'm standing there going, oh my God, just the chills all over. And I know we won't hear it next season. But we'd like to think it's not that far away. And certainly not 22 years away.
The Conference League has a banger. The Conference League has a banger. Yeah,
It does, yeah.
It does.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
As long as we have something to, when we're.
But if they don't have one, we can give them our Irish Mags theme
Yeah,
tune
the intro.
podcast. That'll do. Yeah, give them the intro. Yeah.
Deadly.
At a very reasonable price.
Yeah.
Right. Lads, wherever there's a highlight, there's a low light. And to be fair, you could argue this might actually be one of the... I'm trying to actually look for, aside from the Tonali suspension and a couple of the bad defeats, everyone else is shouting the same thing, Chris Shaw. The most... Now, I hate to say it because the French are known for pissing us off when it comes to handball situations. We don't need to go back to the Thierry Henry debacle. But it is, of course, the most scandalous penalty awarded in the 90 stupid minute against poor Tino Livramento, who's done nothing wrong, to give Kylian Mbappe a poxy penalty.
Thanks for coming to me for the low light. But look, let's just be honest here, James. And we spoke about it at the time. I actually broke a pen that podcast in half because it's furious, right? This is. And it might get us in trouble, but I'm not trying to get us in trouble. But this is FIFAcorruption.com / let's make sure Paris get at least to the quarterfinal.html because they didn't want Newcastle going any further. Basically, you could have basically snotted on the ball, by mistake, or you could have, I don't know, fell over on your arse in front of the referee. He would have given a penalty for anything at all. There was a penalty coming in those 9 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever it was. There was definitely a penalty or a very dubious goal coming. So that penalty decision, I'm not even going to call it a decision because he didn't make a decision. He was told to do that. Because when he went like that and ran across to the halfway line to look at I said to myself, this is a penalty. He's going to give a penalty. How many times do you have to look at back where it clearly came up and hit his arm, which is, they write these rules, and yet they went, nobody will notice, right? Nobody will notice. Let's just give him the penalty. But yeah, I just wished that they had missed it because that would have been glorious. It's the worst. It's the worst part.
It's a shocking decision by everyone involved because, again, you see all the tweets that came out from every football commentator, journalist, neutrals. Everyone was like, "How the hell?" But for me, it's the biggest what if moment, right? That penalty decision stopped us from basically qualifying. 2 of the teams in our group of death, we're talking about highlights and lowlights, lads. 2 of the teams in our group of death went to the semi-final. One of them is now in the final.
Yeah.
Right now, it was the team that beat us twice. Dortmund deserved to be there.
Yeah, they do.
Like, what could have happened? We would have played Real Sociedad, could probably have beaten them, and then momentum. Where would that have brought us in the league? No, we probably would have broken down at some point with all the injuries, but it's such a what if. And I cry myself to sleep at night.
I need a drink. I need a drink after that.
Take a drink, Chris Shaw. Right, let's try and cheer him up again, Alan, shall we? The Irish Mags moment of the season, right? So this is specific to the Irish Mags, lads. And this was actually a really nice one, just to kind of we have all our meetups and meet different people, but this was just nice to get a real kind of a random selection of moments that have stood to people, like, let's say, over the season, which, as we said, has lasted roughly 10 years long, the way things have felt. But some of the things that jumped out, a lot of talks about the Sunderland meetup, trips away with the Irish Mags, like Dortmund away and Milan away, talks about just the Irish Mags community, how it's grown bigger, the article in the match programme as well as in the mag. There was a shout out for the Alex Murphy debut, and that actually wasn't me. But to see a young Irish mag actually make his debut was brilliant, right? But the way I've kind of collated these, there's two kind of common themes for the Irish Mags moment of the season. We've got some sentiment here from the lads who've basically talked about travelling with Irish Mags for the first time, or meeting at games in St James's Park or beyond, where previously they might have travelled alone. And then obviously the meetups, as we've said, in the different bars around the country. So for me, I've kind of grouped them together. The Irish Mags highlight has been the first real big season where we've come together as a big old supporters group. And, lads and ladies out there are enjoying travelling as a group and, watching games as a group for the first time.
Yeah.
And do you know what, lads? It's hard to beat. So it definitely warrants being the Irish Mags highlight. It warms the heart, Alan, is what we say.
It does. It 100%. It's exactly what we want it to be. It's a community. We're supporters group 100%. We're all Newcastle fans 100%. We want to do this together. There's no point sitting at home shouting at your TV screen. Come into the pub and do it with all of us. Come into St James's and do it with all of us. And that's exactly what we've gotten. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, frankly, a very beautiful thing, and I won't wax too lyrical about it, gents. But one of the comments is meeting people for the first time and making friends for life. Now, I know that comes across a little bit kind of like nearly kind of come on now, but everybody that's there that comes up, obviously Al is very well known. Paul, myself, slightly less so, Tev, but the way it's all built together, that we can kind of collectively introduce people to other people and kind of build, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And the final day meetup was really an accumulation of all of that hard work by everybody involved in the committee, all you guys here, that people feel that comfortable to be going, right, I'm heading down to the Irish Mags now, I'm going to have a right crack for 3 or 4 hours. It doesn't have to be loads of beers, doesn't have to be like going mad all the time. Well, it does for Al. But it's, and me, because I follow Al's example. But that's the only fault. Yeah. And but it's such a beautiful thing that at the end of the day meetup, I just had a quick look around. Yes, we'd won, but it's really lovely like that. It's not just a case that everyone just kind of goes, right, lads, see you, bye, and walks away. People hang around and get to know each other and stuff, and you really are making friends that you can get in touch with and ask them, are they going over next week, or are you heading down to meet the lads this week? And that's really beautiful, whether it's in Cork or Sligo or Dublin or Galway or over in Toon itself. It's a wonderful testament to all the hard work that's been done, and it can only get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We probably will need our own venue in about 5 years' time. We'll have to buy our own bar, Al. Do you know what I mean? We'll have to buy our own bar.
Arranged.
Yeah.
We're going to be going for our own airline at this point.
Yeah.
Just to sort out those flights, because that's the only thing that's holding us back, I'd say, lads, is those flights. But again, that's for another day. Yeah, no, it's great. Like I've been to meetups, I've travelled to games, meeting people you wouldn't normally meet, and just the togetherness, the crack. I think one of the last games I went to, the day after, I ended up just out for the day with Dara, who I'd never met before, and then we spent around 12 hours in each other's company. Like just that kind of thing is brilliant crack. So you can't get enough of that, to be fair. Right, and to cap it off, we did go out and we asked for nominations for the Irish Mag of the Season award. Now, quick stipulation on this.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Krisho, if you'd like to take a little break. Sorry, Krisho, it's not good news, I'm afraid.
Oh, man.
Simon Cowell would say.
Oh, man.
Now, we did go out to ask for nominations for this award, but I suppose we didn't really specify, but we kind of made a decision together that we didn't really want it to go to any of the committee members, because probably, some of the committee members that are in there, obviously the likes of Tev and Scott and even, ourselves here, are probably more well known than others because we make the most noise and we never shut up. So we did want to look and spread it, outside of that committee. But we got such a wide variety of votes. What I mean to say is there's about 20 different Irish Mags nominated.
Yeah.
that, to be fair, lads, we kind of reached the point where the Irish Mags of the season are the Irish Mags of the season. And it's not us, but it's all of you, if that makes sense. So,
Well done, everybody.
Congratulations, everyone.
Everyone in the WhatsApp groups, everyone who's gone to any of the meetups, who's traveled to the games, who's listened to this podcast, again, one more pat in the back for all the Irish Mags in the group. Fair
Absolutely.
play. And,
Fantastic, guys. Yeah.
as we said, we're only going to get bigger and better. Right.
Just want to reiterate, though, everybody on the podcast.
Go ahead, Krisho.
I did come in a close second to everybody else. Just want to say
He
that.
voted for himself.
Yeah.
We all
So,
know
I mean,
we've
he
got
came
new
last.
Yeah,
we know all his all his family members voted for him, and I've deleted them all off the sheet. Right. We're going to take a quick break, after which we're going to return with the big announcement of today's show, the Irish Mags player and young player of the season. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Irish Mags show, and it is the big announcement. A couple of weeks ago, we went out to the Irish Mags community to look for nominations for the Irish Mags player and young player of the season. Now, this isn't just any old award, lads, right? This isn't just us choosing a player and making a statement. We've been in touch with the club. We want the club to know that we have 400 or 500 members out there. Obviously, as we said, going to meetups and travelling to games and talking about Newcastle all the day long, as we know from our WhatsApp groups. And, what we really would love to see is actually the winners of these awards, which we'll get to, are made very aware that they've been awarded the exclusive title of Player of the Season and Young Player of the Season by the Irish Mags Newcastle supporters group. So more to come in that sense, but I know that Tev has made it his lifelong mission
Yes.
to have one, if not both of these players holding an Irish Mags flag or wrapped around their heads or Tev in a photo pointing at them. We're not sure yet, but it is a work in progress. So let's not beat around the bush, lads. We can confirm. Do you know what? I'm going to let you guys do it, lads. Right? So Alan, I'm going to ask you to announce the Irish Mags young player of the season. Could you do the honours, please? Drum roll.
I can, of course. So, with many, many votes, and Irish Mags young player of the season is, in fact, Tino Livramento.
Oosh. All right.
Very,
Well,
very
Tino.
well deserved. Very well deserved.
Tino.
Fully deserved. Yeah, hard to argue with that. Yeah. And Krisho, we'll go to you then for the Irish Mags Player of the Season award, please.
I can't believe you guys trusted me with this. I really feel quite privileged. And I'm not going to mention the names I've mentioned on the other podcasts.
Don't say it.
But the Irish Mags Player of the Season, player of the season is Mr. Anthony Gordon.
Bosh.
100%.
100%.
Kind of had to be.
Yeah.
It kind of had to be. Yeah, it did have to be. Now, we'll talk about both, I think, just in a little bit more detail before we wrap up. If we focus on Anthony Gordon for a moment, because Christian's just announced it, lads. Isaac's had a phenomenal season. Top highest goal scorer for 20 years. He's had 25 goals in all comps. He's been unbelievable. But I think, obviously, as we know, a lot of that has come in the second half of the season. Anthony Gordon, I think he's the one that talked about availability, but all season, he would win the most improved player, but he's been there all season. Kind of never really had a bad game, I would say. Our main attacking threat has carried us when we've needed him, has played in multiple different positions. So, yeah, it's a no-brainer. I couldn't get past it. Bruno, it's a shout, but it's hard to go past him.
We started the podcast with one words about haphazard and so on and everything else. The one word for him is consistent. Not only is he consistently fit, consistently tries hard, consistently plays well, but he has the quality at the end of it. He has the finish at the end of it. He has the assists and the goals. Plus, he seems like a very intelligent young man. He loves the club he's playing for, and he seems to have a big heart. And we all know that that's just going to make us love him even more. Well worthy of any accolades that he gets at all.
Yeah, and deservedly is now in Gareth Southgate's provisional 55 trainings, 55-man training squad, which makes no sense. But I don't know, lads. I'd be very disappointed if he wasn't starting in the first game of that Euros. Alan, would you agree?
Him and Cole Palmer are the two most informed wingers in the league. But Cole Palmer took an awful lot of penalties. Take them away from him, and I think Gordon edges it just to be deserving of. He definitely needs to be on the plane, 100%. He does deserve to start, and if he doesn't, Southgate deserves a 10-year contract because I don't want to see England winning on.
Yeah, that's a different reason, a different mentality, but totally fair. We love the pettiness here.
Yes.
The one thing as well, you mentioned penalties, but you look at Anthony Gordon's figures this season, double figures for both goals and assists. Anthony Gordon has won 6 penalties. They don't count in his assist numbers. If you're just going to look at stats, you can add 6 assists. They count in the FPL. They don't count in the actual stats. Yeah, massive. I don't see why you wouldn't start him on the left.
No.
At least in one, if not 2 of those group games.
Yeah.
Right. Other things that went around actually, as there was talks of that squad, was potentially that Tino could get a call up. Not only because obviously he's a really good player and he's obviously young, but also his flexibility, and we've seen that this season as well. He's played both right back and left back for us. Obviously better at right back, and I think we'll actually see Trippier at left back for England. But again, time will tell. There was votes for Lewis Miley for the young player of the season.
It was a very tight decision at
close.
the end of it. Yeah, it was very tight towards the end of it, but I do think Tino warranted it. He was outstanding all year. He battled back from an absolute horror knee injury to be where he is now. And if some people who have watched us on other shows, I said originally before we signed him, if we could sign anyone from a relegated club, I picked him.
Yeah.
This kid is going to be, he's the future England fullback for the next 10 years. Lewis Hall on the other side, I can't believe we have it, and we're never letting him go. Tino Livermore is only going to get bigger, better, stronger. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and I think, Krisha, so much so, people forget this. If you recall, we got to Christmas and Trippier had the most assists in the league as a right back. He was our most influential player. It's easy to forget it now because so much time has passed and he was missing. But once Tino is back in there, you just don't feel it. Maybe a couple of set pieces here and there, and he doesn't necessarily get the assists, but both defensively and offensively, for a player 20 years old coming in to step in for, as I said, one of our, if not our most influential player and captain, and you don't really notice. You're not going to sit in there going, I wish we had Trippier. You're happy with Tino. And I think that's one of the big things for me, why he deserves young player this season.
Absolutely. And a wonderful thing about it is that we have, I think, Al, correct me if I'm wrong, that we have a Harrison Ashby coming back in from Swansea City, or is he maybe going away?
I think he's going to be shipped out. I think he'll be brought back and sold on, if I'm honest with you. But as long as we make a profit on him, it's a good deal. So
yeah, because I honestly thought he was going to be the right back and Tino was going to be the left back. But now that we have England's future next decade left back and right back, the recruitment's gone very, 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 very well with these two.
Yeah.
He fully deserves it. He's excellent on the ball. He seems to slot in so nicely. He doesn't look out of place at all. And to be honest with you, I've been turned around, tumble dried to a point where I'd much prefer if Tino started at right back than Trippier. So I was, if that happened like the first game next season, I'd be like, nice. Here comes the future. Here we go.
Yeah, I think there's not much more you can add to that. Both fully deserved awards, between Gordon and Tino. Obviously, Gordon could probably qualify for Young Player of the Season as well. But he's been so good. He deserves Player of the Season. So one more round of applause. That's our Irish Player and Young Player of the Season. Krisha, you mentioned there talking about potentially Tino starting at right back next season. I think we'll put a pin on that to next week. We did say we wanted to have a chat about our squad based on the Deal or No Deal segment we had last week. I just think we've enjoyed the end of season review that we should probably dedicate an entire podcast to that topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with Krisho and all his wacky transfer stories, because we're still waiting for Joachim Anderson to show up at St. James's Park. It is now
coming.
nearly 6 months later.
It is coming.
Yeah, sure.
It is coming.
So I think we'll carry that for a transfer special in the next week or so. Before we kind of wrap up, there's a couple of news items that have jumped out this week, lads, I think we should talk about. And some of them are actually kind of a little bit transfer related. Alan, I want to ask you about 2 of them, because before we hit record, you said to me, there's talks that the Tossin deal is already done.
yes.
Whereas for most of today, which is Tuesday the 21st, all I saw were some rumours that the Lloyd Kelly deal was already done.
Yes.
Are they both done? What's happening here?
Well, according to the ITKs on Twitter, both are done deals, and 2 massive deals if we did get that done. Like they're 2 smashing defenders to bring in on frees. I don't think they're not going to be on free wages, if you know what I mean, but they're 2 big signings. 2 very, very good, very young, up-and-coming English defenders that are going to be a massive addition to the squad next year. It looks like it's going to be a great move if we get them.
Yeah, with the injuries as well, Chris, like obviously, we have good defenders. We have Fabian Schär, we have Sven Botman, but Botman and Lascelles are not going to be to for the beginning of next season, right? You're potentially after Christmas. So
after Christmas, yeah. So
they
they have
bring
to
in 1, if not 2, free signings that could slot in there. That's pretty good business and allows us to spend the money elsewhere, right?
absolutely. It was either going to be Joachim Anderson, like I said before, or it was going to be these 2 guys for free, even though they're not going to be free because they're obviously going to cost quite a bit in wages. And so on, so on, so on, so on. The only other one that I had seen sniffing about, and I really hope it's true, but I don't know how it fits in, is how do I pronounce his name? The Valencian goalkeeper.
Georgi Mamardashvili.
That guy coming in, right, for 30 million, I think, something like that. 30 million pounds or 30 million euros.
35 million euros, so thereabouts 30 million pounds, yeah.
Look, anybody listening to the podcast, go on YouTube and look at his highlights. The guy's, he's massive. Not only is he physically massive, he's massive. He's a quality goalkeeper. I really hope that is something that kicks in, in June, that we get him in. Just get him in for
He's going to be
tours.
He's going to be at the Euros as well, right? Georgia have qualified for the Euros for the first time in their history, and he's going to be in goals for them. So
keep an eye.
He'll be on the mainstream TV for everyone to do some real life scouting as well. Nice. Other things that have popped up. What's the story with this Dan Ashworth situation, Alan? Because I saw a clip. I'm on my holidays, and I saw a clip that just says he accidentally emailed, himself, but to his Newcastle email account.
Yeah.
Which basically is a copy of an email he had with a guy who wasn't even on the books with Man United at the time, but was on the... This sounds like either the biggest load of shit or the stupidest situation for these professional, highly educated, intelligent people to find themselves in.
He's essentially CC'd Newcastle in talking to Manchester United behind the club's back. It's something that, like, when you teach your granddad how to email, he would do. That's the only way to explain that one. It's dreadful. This man is meant to be the man behind the wheel. What the hell is he doing if he can't even use an email address?
Like I saw that what I read is that he BCC'd himself in an email to a Man United official or the guy who was moving from City to United. Who's technically still on garden leave.
Yeah.
But he's used his, Dan Ashworth at NewcastleUnited.com. Like, if that's the case, I mean, it's hilarious. The whole thing is a bit hilarious in a way, and how upset Jim Ratcliffe is by the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it is turning into a farce because it's growing more and more legs.
Yeah.
I would like it resolved, but at the same time, it's enjoyable to watch Man United suffer with this and not get what they want when they think they should. And we are petty people.
Yeah. But if they do get caught for potentially tapping him up, they should be paid a full 20 million in his release clause because it's in the contract, plus a fine for tapping up a player. A director of football or whatever you want to call it.
Still an employee though, right?
Yeah, it's an employee. You can't do it. If Newcastle done it to Manchester United, all their fans would be running amok saying, throwing them at football. So
absolutely, docked him 6 points. That's what I think as well. Docked him 6 points for the start of next season, or make
ban them from Europe. Ban them from Europe for next year.
Perfect. Or make Dan Ashford their new manager. Go on ahead, Dan. If you're so brilliant at picking players and stuff, go on ahead, be the manager.
Do you know what? It'd be better than what they have anyway.
100% it would.
But I prefer to watch them suffer. Excellent. Okay, and the last piece of news we wanted to mention, lads, was on the day this podcast is released, somehow we managed to find ourselves over in Australia 3 days after finishing the league, which in itself is an interesting decision made. Understand the reasons why. Probably not ideal. Hopefully just go get it done and get the hell out of there. But the club did send out some emails to members with some codes to basically allow you to watch that game live.
Yes.
And as somebody has pointed out, and I'm not going to name names, but I saw somebody actually say that, it'll be great. We can get paid at work to watch Newcastle play
that wasn't me.
Friendly in Australia. Who's what, where? Yeah.
I don't know.
watch Newcastle play a friendly in Australia at 10:45 a.m. Irish time. That's not a bad way to spend the morning, lads, or a good point by which to take an extended break in the morning for a coffee or whatever else you do on your break.
Yes,
it is.
Not bad.
And the other game on Friday is an 8:15 a.m. kickoff. It's a little bit earlier, so you might be getting paid for the full game. You might only get paid for the second half.
And anybody who's a member of Newcastle United Football Club should have got an email yesterday or this morning with a code. You go in, you click buy now for the bundle, add in the code, and you get access to it.
Yes, very convoluted.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, you'd wonder why they just don't make it available for everyone. But there's a reason for everything, I'm sure, and it paves the way for future things. We'll see if there's any announcements about Sella Cups and Japan tours and all of the rest of it in the summer. Speaking of the summer, lads, we've done our end of season review. What a season it's been. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we've been doing this podcast for now, 25, 26 weeks since November. Hell of a ride so far, but we can confirm it's not stopping here. We're going to keep going, obviously, throughout the summer. We're going to be here with one show every single week, usually on a Wednesday. We may have some live streams and live shows coming your way as well. We've got a ton of guests lined up.
Yeah.
We have our head of guest relations working intensively in the background, lining up loads of guests because we'll have loads to talk about in the summer. Starting now and starting next week, as we said. We don't even have time to talk about transfers. We're going to do that next week. So yeah, we will be back again next week as usual. But seeing as it is the end of the season, lads, it's probably a good time to just kind of look back and say a huge thank you to all the Irish Mags community, all of the people who've listened, who've tuned in on Spotify, Apple and YouTube, everyone who's liked, subscribed, followed, left us comments, left us feedback, left us ratings, all of the above. And if you haven't so far, make sure you do it. Click those buttons that are, below the screen, etc., etc. And one other thing we want to do, lads, we should shout out some of the guests we've had join us on the Irish Mags show this season. We started low. We started with Tev, just to kind of ease into it.
He said that.
And it can only get better from there. We had Pete Davey, and we had Daz Shocks on from Loaded Mag. We had Freddie from the London Mags. We had Matty from the Magpie channel. We had Emile Franchi, Jamie from the Mag, John O'Hare all the way from North America, Mr. Sean Casey, not once but twice for some of our live stream transfer specials. Eyes emoji, hopefully more to come. We had Cathal from the Irish Mags TikTok account. I think probably my favourite one, lads, and potentially similarly for yourselves.
Yeah.
Highlight of the season, having Warren Barton on the show back in January.
That's
really cool.
Yeah.
And as I said, way more to come. But a huge thank you to everyone all of our guests who've been on with us, and the lads who showed up for the live show in the Bleaker as well. We can't forget those.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a ride it's been. I'm exhausted just thinking about it, lads. So I think it's a good time to bring episode 25 to a close. All we can say, lads, is we'll be back next week for more Irish Magnus. So until then, away the lads, slán guffol, and we'll see you all next week. Say goodbye,
Slán,
lads.
Slán Awalya, fellas.
Slán Awalya, slán lad.
What a season. Time for bed.
Yes.
Time for bed.